So if you can lead me a bit.
Do you want intensive background conversation?
Yeah. No, I want you to shut up altogether. As a matter of fact, is what I really would like. Or join in. If you've got a question for Alan, please vocalise it. Alan, it is really great to see you back in Lyme Regis. And I want to say at the beginning, when we first started doing Lyme Regis Radio, Lyme Regis TV, it was something you did in town that was one of our great inspirations.
I think it might be Sublime News.
Sublime News, I remember it well. I was in it once. You featured this really, really bad photograph of me. And I thought, I'm going to get him for that. So tonight's the night.
Ah, good luck. You could try.
So how's life since you left Lyme?
I'll try and speak over Martin, or through him. I live up in Scotland now, and I've been away for 10 years. So 5 years I was in Tinmouth, then 5 years up in Scotland, and I work in London. And I'm now a director representing the largest authors society in the world.
Wow.
So we've got a turnover of the two agencies of about 110 million a year, which goes, a lot of that goes out to authors in secondary royalties. So that's almost my day job these days.
Wow, so you're doing a lot of travelling in that case.
I'm up and down a lot, and yes. I've written one book a year, sometimes two.
I've got more than one of your books as well. I've got one you did on travellers themselves.
Yeah, yeah, and I did Battle of the Beanfield, which was
and
very
that
popular.
one, I've got, that's
yeah.
the one I've got,
Yeah.
because that's one of my favourite subjects, the Battle of the Beanfield. And I think your work for the, what would you say, independent communities and minorities doesn't go unnoticed by many people.
No, I've sold about 260,000 books now that I've written.
Yeah.
And I think this is my 38th.
So this, in a sense, is not going to be any different from the past. You're supporting the cause of the minority in here, are you?
The backstory is about when the Americans tried to bring segregation into Lyme Regis. So that's very controversial and not a very well known part of history.
Wasn't there was some kind of incident, wasn't there, outside the Marine Theatre?
It's people that told me about what they call Lyme's Riot have got it situated variously, coming down Coombe Street, outside Marine Theatre, or outside the vaults, which is the lock point. So, and it is in the book, a version of it, but it's a novel, it's not a social history.
So you've included within the framework present day characters translated into 1940s time?
No, I've tried to write the characters as they would have been in the 1940s, so I've tried to make that realistic, so they speak in the voices of the time,
yes.
And I mix the music of the time and the hobbies and pastime, and the fact that people were living very much for the moment.
Yes. It's a very different time, isn't it? Language was different. The way people spoke was different.
What happened in Lyme was obviously a lot of the men were away in the forces. So when the Americans arrived, they arrived in two waves. The black Americans came in first, and they built the camps. So they built a camp in Laundry Fields, up on Ware Cliffs, and up on Spittles. There were three camps, tented villages basically. Then the white troops came, and the American authorities tried to bring in total segregation. So this pub was a black pub, this was a white pub, different nights at the cinema.
That would be difficult in Lyme Regis, wouldn't it?
And a lot of the locals around here had got on so well with the black troops that they resented the white troops treating them as niggers. That was the vocabulary. You know, the people who liked the white colours and got very friendly with them. And there was a lot of girls walking out the black troops here.
So there's got to have been an immense amount of research gone into something as good as this.
It's taken probably 20 years from the first ideas. And the first person to mention it was John Fowles.
Really?
Yeah. And then I heard the riot story from somebody whose father was the police sergeant who dealt with it. So that was done in the ship, you know, just, that was in about 1990, I think, that story.
With these verbal discussions?
Yeah, well, I was getting kind of my novelist antennae kind of popped up, and I really got interested, and I thought, well, obviously research more, and I got access, as Ken Gollop would just say, to everything that was in the museum. And then I went and did about 30 interviews with locals who did live in that time and were able to give me their stories. So my characters are invented, and I put words into their mouths that are pretty authentic. And my main characters in it were evacuees who were staying here as sort of 15-year-olds going to the school here, and they got friendly with the American troops.
It's interesting. We did a program a couple of years ago with evacuees, and some of the stories you hear at that time terrifying.
Yes.
To young people, kids often during that time.
The two girls in it, they'd been evacuated from Plymouth for being extremely badly bombed.
Yes.
And I got them staying with a family in Woodmead Road. So they're part of a group of half a dozen evacuees in that household. And then there's events going on because there were a lot of social events organised while the Americans were here, and really quite famous people were coming and performing in town, and I've kind of weaved in mostly true stories, but I've bent the timeline around.
It's not a very well documented period, actually, is it? So maybe
well, if you think about Slapton Sand, the famous exercise tiger,
yes.
that only was revealed 25 years after the event.
Yes.
So a lot of this, I think, is a hidden history.
Yes. Yes.
And my background originally, I read joint honours sociology and social history at the university, and I've always thought that social history explains a bit like what happened, and the sociology helps you understand why it happened. So, and in a sense, I've used some of that hopefully skills to make this come alive.
Yeah. Do you think it's one of those stories that could only have been told in the form of a novel?
I couldn't tell it as the truth because I was getting 5 or 6 versions of almost every episode that happened. So, you know, what is the truth then? You know, people believed what they were telling me, but they were contradicting each other.
That's the difference between now and then, isn't it? We live in a time when everything is reported, everything is documented, and in 50 years' time, 60 years' time, people will not have the same ethos about the past as they have now.
I'm not contradicting you, but if there was a crash out there now, and the police come and interview 5 people, you get 5 versions.
5 completely different stories.
And so this is even more bound to be more true because it's looking back a long time. You know, it's over 60 years ago now.
How does it feel to be back in Lyme Regis, Alan?
Oh, I always enjoy my visits, and no doubt I'll be practising on a little bit of alcoholic apple later on.
Good thinking, good thinking. I might join you actually. Have you been back to Lyme many times since you left?
I come back at least once a year, sometimes twice,
Yeah.
and I also pop back to Teignmouth where I also lived for a while, and I've done one whole chapter in Teignmouth as well. So most of it is in Lyme.
Would you ever move back here?
I wouldn't say never, but I don't know. I'm fairly happy.
You're obviously loved by this town. Everybody knows.
I remember.
That's a much better way. Thank you, Alan. The Friendly Invasion by Alan Dearling, available now from Serendip Books and $5.99 from any other outlets. Can they get it on Amazon?
There's an ebook version on Amazon.
Ebook on Amazon. But buy this one. Much better. Thank you.
Cheers.
Should I not have said that? Sorry, I never said Amazon. I said buy it in Lyme Regis at Serendip Books. Support your independent bookseller wherever you are. Thank you.
Fine. Now you can relax.